Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to NOLA Theatre Talk. My name is Alan Smason. Glad to be here. Hope that you are having a great night. This is broadcast on the NOLA Theatre Folk Facebook group, on the theatercriticism.com Facebook page, which is used to promote our reviews on theatercriticism.com. And it's not just my reviews, it's reviews of different theater critics across the country, and as well on my own YouTube channel. This was, of course, a product of the COVID pandemic. We had a situation where theaters were shuttered. Therefore, nobody could go to a theater. And so we started this show up to kind of link the community together. And it started that way. And we've continued it on Monday nights. At first, it was on Mondays and Fridays, but Monday nights, that's a traditional night that theater is dark. And it's a lot of times when actors and other creatives are not working in theater that particular night, so we invite them to come on. One person who is not working on Mondays normally, but is working definitely in New Orleans now, is Christian Thompson, and we're inviting Christian to come in. Christian is playing the role of Fiyero in the national tour of Wicked. And again, I appreciate you being with me. You are in a very big show, in a very big theater. We mentioned, the pandemic, and that's how we kind of started the thing off. We have a little bit of an icebreaker, and I've got myself a very delectable vodka and orange juice screwdriver. Ooh. So, I knew how to start our show off right. You have.
I've got a coffee, but it's in, of course, a Cafe Du Monde coffee mug, so
that makes it very acceptable to all of us here in New Orleans. In any event, Christian, I appreciate you being with us again. You may want to give me a little bit of backstory first before we get into the actual show, because there are a lot of people who know a lot about the show. Some people may not, and we'll fill them in. But give me a little bit of background on you. Where do you hail from, and how did you happen to get part of what basically is a juggernaut of a show? It's now celebrated its 20th anniversary. In the last 20 years, there's no show that has grossed more than Wicked. It's on the fastest track to $1 billion that's been put on record. Although I don't know, Hamilton may catch up to it eventually. We don't know. But in other words, it's at the Gershwin Theater. Do you know how many seats are in the Gershwin Theater, by the way?
Oh, I do not. Not off the top.
1,935 seats.
Yeah, I was going to say 1,800. I was close.
All right, and that's the biggest show venue on Broadway. 1935. Guess what? New Orleans, the Saenger Theater, 2,660 odd seats. So it's that much larger than the biggest Broadway theater. So you're, like I said, a very big theater. And again, we're glad to have you as part of this show. But again, how did you become part of a little bit of background? Where did you go to school, and how did you get your card and everything else?
Absolutely, yeah. I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So that's I was born and raised in the place where a lot of people go to vacation. I'm sure you hear that a lot from New Orleans as well. But yeah, born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Started acting and doing theater when I was about 8 years old. And that's when I decided I wanted to be an actor. I saw a touring production of Cats, and basically realized that these are adults that get to, go around the nation dressing up like a cat, and they get paid for it. And I said, sign me up.
Yeah. Have you met any of the people who wore Cats now?
Yes, I have actually. So funny story. You're jumping my story. You got me. Funny story with that I'll get back to when I talk about how I got my card.
Yeah.
So I'll see if I can remember. But I went to Penn State for musical theater. I got my BFA in musical theater from Penn State. Graduated in 2015. And then from there, I kind of, worked my way up the ladder. I did After Midnight on Norwegian Cruise Lines. I did the 20th anniversary of Rent tour. So I've got lucky with the 20th anniversaries. And then after Rent, I jumped on a little show called Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations. That is actually where I should have gotten my card, but I ended up getting my card with a show called Skeleton Crew. And I did that in between our world premiere and our pre-Broadway tour. And then finally we went to Broadway in 2019.
Dominique Morso, is that right? For Skelton?
Yeah, both of them are Dominique.
And I Ain't Too Proud on Broadway. And I don't know, what were you in the ensemble?
Yes, so I played Smokey Robinson and Damon Harris.
You know, you got a little bit of a striking resemblance to Smokey. Yeah,
a little bit. We've got a picture we got to meet when we were in LA, and yeah, definitely in the family.
Okay, so tell me about the famous cat.
So then I'm on Broadway in Ain't Too Proud, and I'm telling my dresser the story of, like, you know, of this story, right? How'd you get into it? And I'm telling him about how I saw it in Fort Lauderdale, you know, it was 90, whatever. And he turns to me, he goes, I was in that production. And I go, no, there's no way. There's no way. And he goes, yeah, Alan. And so sure enough, I got my mom to dig out the playbill, because we keep all playbills, as a lot of theater folk do. And sure enough, there he was in my playbill. And he, you know, of course, had hung up the leotard, and was dressing on Broadway now. And so he was my dresser. And so that was a really cool kind of full circle moment.
I kind of wondered if you had actually met, one of our famous cats from New Orleans, who you may or may not recognize. I'm sure from his stuff, but he played one of the cats on Broadway, and yes, he did go at the Winter Garden, and he was hanging out there. Recognize that fellow? That's Brian Batt.
Yep, sure enough.
All right, that was taken last year, but somewhere in my my annals of pictures that I have a picture of him in his cat uniform or costume, as far as it goes. So that's kind of fun too. So let's get into it a little bit. You did enough good work on Broadway that you got noticed, and did you have to audition? I assume you did for Fiyero. Were you intent on getting Fiyero, or were you going for Bach and you got Fiyero? I mean,
I feel like I'd be a pretty good Bach, but no, I was going for Fiyero, and I've been a super fan of the show for 20 years, and it's a role I've always wanted to play. And they called me in. There he is. They called me in. I was fortunate that I only had one audition. It was a work session. I was in the room for about an hour and 15 minutes, if I remember correctly. And so then about 2 weeks later, I got the call from my agent, and the first person I called after that was my mom, to let her know that we did it.
That's right. I don't know if you noticed, I have a special tie that I'm wearing.
Oh
yeah. Wait a minute. Keep going.
There we go. There they are. There they are. Oh, that's lovely.
How you like that? Yeah,
I like
that. I wore it. The other thing that I happen to have, that you may not have seen is this. Now you've seen lots of these, but this one is a special grimoire, and it was sent to me by David Stone. That's the letter. No. David Stone, one of the producers of sent this to me by special, and on it in the opening pages here, and I'm going to have to get some of the most incredible people are on there, including and I'm going to show you a couple of the pictures that I mentioned. I started off with a couple of people that you said you may not remember. That's Clifton Davis there, and Kim Zimmer, who was Reva on The Guiding Light for many years. And that's a better picture that we had with the flash going off. But there I am with the grimoire. It's the same grimoire I have in my hand here. And then recently, somebody else signed the grimoire.
Hey!
And that's going to lead me into that Celia, of course, Hottenstein, who plays Glinda.
Yes.
I've got a picture of her in her bubble there. It's an amazing thing. So again, I need to stop by one evening when you're free, so I can get you to sign the grimoire. You can get into this particular book. I'm hoping one day I hope to donate that grimoire to the Wicked Hall of Fame or something. I'm not
Yeah,
quite sure.
exactly. There's definitely going to be one.
I actually had one of the occasions in 2016. The person who played the wizard, Stuart Zagnett, and I became close friends due to the fact that I brought my grimoire to him sign, and I said, "Well, have you had any drinks in New Orleans?" And he said no, and I said, "I'm taking you to get a Sazerac." Have you had a Sazerac yet?
Oh, yes,
Okay.
I have.
So he never had a Sazerac. I took him to have a Sazerac. We've been best buddies since.
Amazing.
And we've actually been. That was a picture that we took at Sardi's. We've been to Sardi's a couple of times, but now Stuart is on Broadway. He's the understudy for Chip Zion in Harmony. That's on Broadway now.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. And so those of you who played the games, the anime, Pikachu, and what have you, he was Professor Oak. I don't know if that helps any sort,
Yes, it does. It does for me. I don't know about anybody else.
But anyway, so there have been a lot of people who've signed that. And I definitely would like to get your signature, to add to the many other famous people there. But now let's get back to the show. You get a chance to perform opposite as much as I love to say that's the wizard, of course, but as much as I'd like to say it's a show about two witches, I really think it's really more about Elphaba than anybody else.
Sure.
I mean, it really, she's got the best songs and the best belting. And again, I failed to get a picture of Olivia. She signed the book as well, but sure. My girlfriend who was with me did not take the picture. We were so happy to see her. It was starting to rain, etc. So we didn't take a picture. I'm gonna have to go back and get a picture. When I come back, maybe you can set up. We can do that. Absolutely. And I can get another picture with her. Anyway, long and the short is, yes, Elphaba is to me the main of the leads, although they probably would be equally considered. But and you get a chance to have a very real scene in Act 2 with Elphaba, and I'm not going to give it away for those who haven't gone to see it. You really need to see it and explore it. But Fiyero is the captain of the guard at that point. And we're not going to go into any more reveals on that. But Fiyero becomes a very important part. And those of you who have not seen Wicked, I really recommend that you read The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. Sure. And learn a little bit about it, or get the Grimoire. The Grimoire has a lot of information that you may not know about it. And of course, everybody knows The Wizard of Oz, 1939, one of the biggest movies ever in probably the biggest year for Hollywood. That was the year that Gone with the Wind came out, and The Wizard of Oz. I mean, it was at a peak of Hollywood at that time. And The Wizard of Oz became this movie that, as kids, my generation and maybe a little bit beyond, we got to see it not on demand on videotape. We got to see it maybe twice a year if we were lucky, at Easter time, and maybe one other time they would show it. So we were enthralled. And the fact is, The Wizard of Oz, the first part of it that was shot, and I'm almost positive, wasn't it Victor Fleming who was the director, who also directed Casablanca later on? Victor Fleming shot the first part of it, what we would call on TV black and white. But guess what? It was not shot in black and white.
Right.
It was shot in sepia.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a brown kind of a look. We gave it a Kansas look, I guess you might say. But a lot of people think it was black and white. It was not black and white. And I'm sure you know a lot of different things about it. But again, it was one of the first films shot in Technicolor. Not the very first, but one of the ones, one of the biggest ones. Gone with the Wind also was shot in Technicolor. But it was at that time a nascent kind of color processing, and so essentially, it became a big movie. Not just for people who saw it in the theater, but all the people who saw it on TV. And I know Bill Bixby. You remember the Incredible Hulk? He used to introduce it a lot of times on Sunday nights that we'd see it. And we'd watch starry-eyed and we'd watch it. Of course, what happened was a fellow, I believe his name was David McGuire. Is that right? Wrote the book called. I'm sorry.
Gregory Maguire.
Gregory Maguire. That's right. Gregory Maguire wrote the book that it was based on and told it from a different perspective, from the story, not from the story of Dorothy Gale, who gets blown into the wizard's land of Oz, but indeed the witches who inhabit the land of Oz and their backstory. Mm-hmm. And so Winnie Holtzman wrote the book for this in 2003. Stephen Schwartz, of course, most everybody knows him from Pippin, but of course, I think now when the first word out of everybody's mouth when they talk about Stephen Schwartz is not Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Pippin, but it's Wicked. I mean,
Right.
it's just been, that fantastic for him. And again, there are little things that Maguire introduced. I mean, he introduced the character Elphaba. Elphaba is not mentioned in The Wizard of Oz, but it's mentioned in Wicked because that was his homage to L. Frank Baum, right?
Yep.
So L. Frank, F. Baum, L. F. B. Elphaba. Yeah. See how we got that? So again, this is the story of Galinda, or Glinda as she becomes, and Elphaba. And I had a couple, shots earlier. I had one that's the wizard, and the wizard's not necessarily the opportunist that we come to think of him as. There's a little bit more behind him, a little bit more, perhaps a little more malevolent intent.
Sure.
Although it's masqueraded behind his wonderful character, and again, Timothy does a great job. Timothy Shue, right? Who's in the show, and then we also have Kyle MacArthur. Is that right?
Yep.
And that's Kyra.
Tara Costmo.
Tara. Yeah, I'm terrible with sometimes fudging names. I apologize. I don't have I should have the playbill in front of me, but I don't. Tara. I got it. Tara Kostmeyer. And she plays Nessa Rose, who would be considered the Wicked Witch of the East. Mm-hmm. Again, not to give much away. And again, I think I've pretty much most of the shots that I've got that are out there. I've got one more that I'm gonna spring on you a little bit later. But let's get back to Fiyero. Tell me a little bit about how you approach Fiyero, and are there any aspects to it that you believe are pretty much your own?
I mean, the good and kind of tricky part about doing a show that's been around for 20 years is a lot of it's been mined in one way or another. So the most I can do is bring as much of myself to the character as possible. I also have a dance background. I started as a hip hop dancer when I was about 9 years old. So I try to bring a lot of that, right? His main song is Dancing Through Life. So I like to kind of hang my hat on the dance side of things. And then I think the other thing for me is a lot of times he can be portrayed as, I think the kids call it like a himbo, right? Or, just kind of not all there mentally. And so I try to play it a little more down to earth, and a little more that it's not so much that he's, not the brightest. It's just he's not focused on certain things. Mm-hmm. He's focused on what he wants and what he needs in the moment. And I think it's a very small scope for him. And I think what ends up happening is the relationship he has with these witches kind of broadens his scope of what he deems important and what he cares about in life. And so I try to come at it from that angle instead of kind of, just maybe the goofy, hunk that he sometimes can get a bad rap for.
That's an interesting use of names there that you're using, a hunk. So, in the movie, they did have a reference to a couple of characters, and I'm not going to go any further because I don't want to give away too much. But for those who haven't seen it, Wicked has a lot of aspects that people will appreciate from the movie of The Wizard of Oz. But teens and tweens a lot are going to appreciate it for a story that talks to them about their young budding relationships too. And I think that's at the heart of what a lot of the people who see the show and fall in love with it and keep coming back for is all about. They get to fall in love all over again with Fiyero and Elphaba as they find themselves and perhaps reflect a little bit on their own lives. They're trying to find their own way in life as far as that goes too. So you've been with the tour how long now?
I started back in February of this year.
And usually these things go like 6 months or so.
I'm on a year contract, so
okay, good.
I will be up in February.
That means they don't want to lose you. So
yeah,
that's good news. And I know that the the national tour of Ain't Too Proud is going to be coming to New Orleans later this year. I'm wondering whether or not you took Wicked, thinking that maybe you'd get Wicked, but that that maybe you would have been on that tour too. You would have been in New Orleans. You never know, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you never know. I did go out I went out last December to help out with the tour when they were in LA. So I was on that tour at one point, and I mean, who knows? They may call me up if they need a hand. So
yeah, well, no, hopefully, you're in Wicked for a good long time. Now, I don't apologize for. Have you been actually on the big stage at the Gershwin?
Not at the Gershwin. No, not yet.
So when I was talking with Stuart, there was a possibility at one point that they may be calling him up to take over the role for the Wizard. It didn't happen, but is that a possibility that you'd be, getting your training, that you might end up going on stage? You never know.
It's out of my hands. It's all up to the men and women behind the curtain. But the person that I replaced on the tour, Jordan Litz, is right now Fiyero on Broadway. So there is precedent.
Yes, there is. A lot of times, and let's face it, both Celia and Olivia toured. Olivia toured with it, I think, from 2016 to 2019. She knows Stuart Zagnit very well, and I think that Celia was the understudy for Glinda on Broadway. That she was. So even though she may not have actually gone into the role directly, her experience that she's got playing the role on the many stages that she's going to be on the national tour might give her a chance to be called up again. And
absolutely.
It's you can liken this a lot to what goes on in Major League Baseball. You go out to the farm club, and they call you up to the big game.
Yep, that's it.
So and hopefully that works out. And again, I mean, to be in this is not exactly as glamorous as Broadway, because you go, but here, I got to say something. You're in New Orleans. You're at the Saenger Theater at this big stage, and you're here for almost 3 weeks in New Orleans. And granted that you have to do 8 shows a week, but the rest of the time you're free to do whatever you want in New Orleans. So you get a chance to have some good times too.
Yeah, no, that's that. I was going to say the exact same thing. I feel like we actually may have a bit of a better time because we get to see, this entire country and beautiful places like New Orleans, and we get to meet incredible people. And so I don't know. I feel like we've got it pretty good out here.
Again, those of you who are interested, I should throw up one of the little banners at the bottom for those of you who have not gotten your tickets. You can go to SangerNOLA.com and get your tickets there. Again, you can get it through Ticketmaster, and of course you pay the fees. If you go to the box office, you don't pay the exorbitant fees that Ticketmaster charges. There are, I think, some sort of facility fees, but that you're going to pay that no matter what. And even on Broadway, you pay facility fees. So unless they give you a ticket to review the show, which is in my case often. But that is not always the case for most of the people who happen to go to Broadway. It's rare. So again, we want to remind everybody that Christian Thompson's our guest. Fiyero is the role he plays in Wicked. And again, if you haven't seen the show yet, and it's hard to believe that there are people in New Orleans who haven't, because it set all kinds of records at the Mahalia Jackson back in 2013 when I took those with Kim Zimmer. And I'm trying to remember Clifton Davis, right? The thing is that this show just does not seem to ever slow down. I mean, there are people who've been in the German cast in Berlin, and people in Japan. It's all over. I mean, and to hear some of the songs like "Defying Gravity" done in German on like the Broadway channel, it just blows my mind that they actually do that. So I don't know if you've heard some of those. I assume you have. I did promise you that I was going to spring another picture on you. I'm not sure if you're ready for this.
Oh, no.
Maybe you are. Let's see.
Oh, there he is.
That is Stephen Schwartz.
Stephen Schwartz. Oh, I know.
Yep, and that's me. And I think I'm getting something autographed by him. I'm not quite sure, but you can see we were both a lot younger than there. Not so much gray in our hair at that
I was
point.
just saying, you look relatively the same.
But I should tell you that I was very, very excited to know he was on board. And again, you had some experience, perhaps maybe doing ships or something. Have you ever done anything like that? Okay, so I was on board the Crystal Harmony, I believe, and he happened to be coming on, and he was getting ready, believe it or not to talk about Wicked, because Wicked was still far off.
Sure.
Wicked had not acted. He was getting ready to talk. I think this was 1996. He was getting ready to talk about a film he was getting to do for the first time with, I think this was The Prince of Egypt.
Oh, sure.
So, and of course, everybody remembers Whitney Houston did a fantastic version of a song that was in there too, When You Believe. And Mariah Carey, I believe, was on the same song with her. I mean, two big giant stars at that time. But yeah, he was not yet revealing all of that was going to be going on with the Prince of Egypt. But that was what he was working on, and so it was 96. So that was still 7 years away from the opening, the debut of Wicked, and I'm sure he was going to work on that at that time too, because it didn't happen overnight. Those things do not happen overnight.
No, they do not.
So, what's your favorite moment in the musical that you get to do? Is it when you have your love song, or is it another time when you have the stage more to yourself?
It changes. It changes, through seasons. Sometimes it's the top of Act 2. Thank goodness, kind of that scene and all of that is a lot of fun, and playing with Celia in that moment is a lot of fun. But as of right now, I think it is As Long As You're Mine with Olivia. It's just a lot of fun getting to act and sing with Olivia. We have some really great chemistry and some really great trust, and I really love just being able to be on stage with her, because we lock in, and it's a really fun time.
Well, I did have a wonderful time talking with her, and it's so funny because a lot of times, people will first thing they'll say is, "Oh, your grandfather, I didn't even mention her grandfather that night."
Yeah.
I want you to, when you do talk to her about maybe signing, getting another picture taken, because I didn't take one with her. If it's possible, when you get to sign the Grimmery, we'll set up that night after we get off. Everybody is going to talk after the show's over. Tell her I'd like to talk to her, and not about her grandfather. But the funny thing is that people don't realize that she had started off back in 2016 using her other name, if you will, and then people kept saying, your grandfather's in the audience to see the show. Who's your grandfather? Frankie Valli. What? use that name. Look, you've already achieved what you were doing. You were already in the national tour. You did it on your own. Right. So let people know who your predecessors were, and be proud of your heritage. So
I will say though, it is a testament to who she is as a human. Right. Like, she never wants anything to get her in the door. She never wants anything other than her talent, her work ethic. And that I applaud that. And you can see it. You can tell when you meet her that she is her whole self. Not that she's not proud of, where she came from, her family, but she's her own person. And so I appreciate that about her. But I also agree. I'm like, come on, it's too cool. You can't. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it would be like Eli and Peyton not acknowledging, that Archie came first.
Right, exactly.
Of course, little Archie now is probably gonna overshadow them all, but we'll see what happens. That's another story. Again, Christian, I appreciate you being with us. We've got only a few more minutes, left before we have to say goodbye. But and again, I know you're busy. This is sort of your downtime, so we appreciate your being here. I know a lot of people don't recognize the fact that you all do 8 shows a week. You have to preserve your voice. You have to make sure. I mean, I didn't expect anybody on the show who's on a national tour to bring in any of these alcoholic drinks, but, because we know you get in trouble for doing that. You got to take it easy. Unless you're a giant star, you don't get a chance to do that too much. But I appreciate your time. And again, those of you who have not yet seen it yet, go check out the show at the Saenger. Christian Thompson's going to be Fiyero, and again, go see Wicked. I hope that everybody has a good time. I'm going to ask you to just stick around for just a little bit longer, Christian, while I say goodbye to everybody. And again, thank you so much for being with us. Again, this is Alan Smason, and this has been NOLA Theatre Talk. We appreciate you being with us. Again, I hope that we get a chance to catch each other soon, and I'll see you at the theater.